Hello, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. I'm a master's level therapist, and my specialty is cognitive restructuring, meaning I specialize in exposing and challenging dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that make decisions for people without their conscious awareness. I also provide people with tools, real tools, to help them reprogram their minds with functional beliefs. Welcome to episode 4 in my Facebook and YouTube live series entitled Automatic React System versus Automatic Response System. So, this is a 4 episode series, but you do not have to have watched the previous 3 episodes to benefit from this session. So, whenever you hear me use certain terms like lies, issues, unaddressed issues, and the buttons people push, I'm referring to the same thing. I'm referring to dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self defeating behaviors repeatedly, despite the consequences, despite what they consciously, logically know they should do. It's hard to fight an invisible enemy. And that's my specialty, exposing and challenging these unconscious beliefs that cause people to keep engaging in self defeating behaviors. So during this episode, I'm going to talk about some of the automatic reactions that people have when certain unconscious beliefs or lies, I also call those dysfunctional beliefs lies because they are. I'm going to talk about the automatic reaction that these lies cause people to have because these beliefs issue directives, and the directives that they issue causes an automatic reaction. I'm also going to talk about more functional beliefs. So I'm going to talk about 3 lies, and then I'm going to talk about 3 more functional, healthy beliefs that challenge those dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs so that people can learn to respond rather than react. It's a process, but once individuals begin internalizing the functional beliefs that challenge the lies, they can begin responding to the same stimuli that used to cause a reaction in the past. And so I'm going to talk briefly before get into the 3 lies I'm covering during this episode. I'm going to talk briefly about the definition, the difference in the definitions between react and response. So each episode, I talk about a source I found, the psychologist, who talks about the difference. So this particular doctor, she says that reacting is an instinctive emotional response to a situation, and it's also impulsive and can be influenced by past experience or fears. And I agree, because these dysfunctional beliefs that I'm going to talk about, they're usually, now there's exceptions to the rule, but they're usually programmed into people's mind during the formative years. That's why they call childhood the formative years, because that's when the unconscious self-concept is programmed. And so this doctor goes on to say that responding is more thoughtful and deliberate. A little slight difference of opinion, because she says responding considers weighing the options and taking consideration of the situation, weighing the options and making a conscious decision. That's responding. And that's true to a certain extent. But a response can be just as automatic and just as quickly, it can happen just as quickly as a reaction. Once people internalize, and some people, they internalize functional beliefs in their childhood, so they don't have to go through any cognitive restructuring. All of us can have some cognitive distortions that we need to work through just by being a part of the human race and living in this imperfect world. But people who have a fairly healthy thought process, they respond in many cases just as automatically as someone who reacts to an unconscious lie that's been embedded into their minds. So I have been alternating each week during this series between talking about 1 week 3 victim-based lies And then the next episode, 3 villain-based lies. So when I talk about victim and villain-based beliefs, I'm not calling people victims or villains. I had to use some term to distinguish between victim-based beliefs and villain-based beliefs. So here's a set of my 100 most commonly seen victim lies and a set of my 100 commonly seen villain lies. So this week I'm going to talk about 3 villain lies. So they're the opposite of the 3 victim lies that I went over in episode 3. So I'm going to talk about the villain lie. There's something wrong with everybody but me. There's a lot of people who struggle with this unconscious belief. And remember, it's unconscious. People who struggle with this belief, they usually wouldn't walk into a room and say, hello, I think there's something wrong with everybody but me. But I'm going to give you some examples of their automatic reactions that informs others that they struggle. And last week I talked about the lie, there's something wrong with you. So here's the victim lie, here's the villain lie. Victim lie, there's something wrong with you. Villain lie, there's something wrong with everybody but me. And a person can be afflicted by both. We call it being VV ambidextrous in my program. A person can operate out of a victim lie at 9 o'clock and switch to a villain lie at 9:02. That's beliefs, and some people operate primarily out of villain-based beliefs. So the VV ambidextrous people, they have to work a little harder. I know, I'm one. And so I had to work through both sets of these toxic beliefs. So let's talk first about the lie, there's something wrong with you, and its overt reaction, the overt reaction that this lie causes. So people who are afflicted by this belief, they harshly criticize others looking for flaws. So they share their findings with people. So that's an overt reaction. Is just instantly looking for flaws in people and feeling the urge or need to share their findings. So that's an overt reaction. So a more subtle or covert reaction to this lie is never acknowledging one's weaknesses and the role one plays in problems or situations. So people who are afflicted by this unconscious belief, they don't readily acknowledge. They talk about everyone else's flaws and imperfections, but they don't talk about theirs. So so I gave you an example of a covert reaction and a overt reaction. So now I'm going to share a more functional belief. So the more functional beliefs are on the back of my cognitive restructuring cards. So I'm just going to reduce it into a couple of sentences. I call it the one-line deactivation codes. And so a more functional belief that challenges the lie, there is something wrong with everybody but me. A more functional belief is there are some things wrong with all of us. And people who watched episode 3, you may remember that I use that same functional belief that challenged the victim lie. So yeah, a functional, healthy belief can challenge the victim lie and a villain lie, because these unconscious beliefs, these toxic, unhealthy beliefs operate in extremes. Dysfunction operates in extremes. The healthy functional beliefs are in the middle. So on one end, someone with the victim belief, believes there's something wrong with them, and in comparison to other people, that they're somehow tainted or contaminated. And a person with the villain beliefs, they believe that everyone else is flawed except them. And so the functional belief is in the middle. So a functional belief can challenge both modes, the victim belief and the villain belief. So another functional belief to challenge this lie is every person on this planet is a mixture of weaknesses and strengths. So people who operate out of the functional belief, they have an overt and covert response. And so to situations. So because they operate out of the functional belief, they discuss their weaknesses and their strengths. They're okay. They understand that we all have them. So they're okay with acknowledging their weaknesses. They're okay with acknowledging their strengths. And then they also, that's an overt response. Now, a more covert response is confronting people for certain behaviors without awfulizing them. So I got that term awfulizing from a mentor of mine. So I want to give him credit. I don't know if he's the original source, so that's why I'm not naming him. But I heard him say that, sometimes people like to awfulize themselves or others. So you say, and so you may ask, is that actually covert response confronting people? Yes, because it's not just confronting people for certain inappropriate behaviors, but you're confronting them without awfulizing them. That shows that because you have a right to set boundaries with people. So people who believe that we're all mixtures of weaknesses confront the behavior without awfulizing the person or acting as if the person is somehow defective because they do what other people do, and that's operate out of unhealthy behaviors from time to time. So the next belief that I'm going to talk about today is this unconscious belief. People are nerve wracking and barely tolerable most of the time. Remember, the belief is unconscious. Most individuals who are afflicted by this belief, they wouldn't walk into a room and say, hello, I think that most people are tolerable most of the time. I was thinking back to some years ago when I was doing my work in person with people, and I was doing a group series with some women on Saturdays, and one of the young ladies had went to the restroom, and when she came back, I was reading this. I was actually putting it on the lie on the whiteboard, and the woman, she was like, she said, she walked in the room when I was reading the lie. People are nerve wracking and barely tolerable most of the time. And she said, amen. We all laughed. And I was like, no, that's the lie. That's the unhealthy belief. So an overt reaction to this lie is criticizing people for doing everyday, ordinary things that people do to live. So people who struggle with this lie, they get easily annoyed by things. So they're often annoyed by little things people do, like walk past them in the aisle at the grocery store or breathing. I had somebody who suffered with this belief. They were asking me, this was years ago, long time ago, when I they were asking me, "Do you have to breathe like that?" And I'm looking at them like, "What do you mean breathe like what? In and out?" So people who struggle with this lie, little things that people do, just ordinary things that people do, like they made, like who's used all the toilet paper. People use toilet paper when they go to the restroom. So they get annoyed by little things. That's an overt reaction. A more covert reaction is acting annoyed or irritated by people's presence. So a person afflicted by this belief, they may not say something, but their body language or facial expression will demonstrate that they're annoyed simply by someone else's presence. Like someone else entering the room and they're like, or someone, walking past them in the aisle at the grocery store and they're like, like they're mad because someone else has the audacity to walk down the aisle at the grocery store. So these are examples of automatic reactions where this lie is triggered. So a more functional belief is we're all tolerating each other to a certain extent. We all have to share this space called Earth. We have to. And people have a right to occupy space and time. So people who have this lie, they act like people don't have a right to. Yeah, people have a right to occupy space and time, just like the lie afflicted person does. And we all have idiosyncrasies that we have to tolerate. Now, the functional belief is not saying you have to tolerate someone doing something that's excessively annoying. And in a lot of cases, people do things like that, trying to get on people's nerves. And that's people who are afflicted by the lie, negative attention is better than no attention. So they struggle with that. But so people have, but we all have idiosyncrasies, little things about us that other people may think is quirky or weird, and we have to practice tolerance to a certain extent. I'll give you an example. One of my family members talks about when I would be over for the weekend I'm not gonna say who it is because they might get mad at me. But and I really wouldn't be overly concerned about that. But I'm gonna respect their privacy. So this person, I would hang out on the weekend. We would watch movies and things like that. And so I used to go to the gym like 5 or 6 days a week. So I would get up really early on Saturday and make my coffee and little toast and stuff. And I probably was being a little insensitive. I didn't realize I was because I'm a morning person. So they would be saying, why do you have to open every cabinet in the kitchen and that early in the morning? And then when I come in the room, all you have is some coffee and toast. You open every cabinet like you making a full course meal, and I'm sitting there sipping on my coffee like, what are you talking about? But this same person likes to crunch ice, and so they crunch ice, and we'd be watching movies, and I don't know why it sounds so loud, but it would be like crunchity crunch crunch, crunchity crunchity crunch crackle crunch, and so I would, so when they would talk about me and my coffee and opening all the cabinets, I talked about they ice crunching. But we started laughing because even though we were joking, we weren't really angry. We were joking about idiosyncrasy. So people who operate out of the functional belief, they understand we all have to practice a certain level of tolerance. You don't have to deal with somebody being excessively rude or insensitive. So I did start trying to be a little more quieter when I spent the weekend over there when I got up, because I didn't realize I was being that loud, making my coffee and toast. So I did, modify that behavior. But she ain't stopped crunching her ice, and I know she was. So, so she didn't have to, right? It was her house, right? And so a overt response rather to the functional beliefs that I just discussed is using humor when talking about things you do that others find irritating and things people do that you find irritating. I just gave that example of the opening the cabinets at 4 a.m. and her crunching ice, like using humor. We use humor when we were talking about that. And then a more covert response is setting boundaries with people who are overtly annoying while ignoring things that are just what people do to exist. So finding that balance, because you do have a right to set a boundary with someone who's doing something that's excessively annoying and irritating, right? But also noticing, catching people with this belief as they heal from this lie. They have to realize that certain things that trigger this lie, until they develop a relationship with the functional belief, certain things that trigger this lie is just everyday things that people do that you're just gonna have to learn to ignore. And so finding that balance is a process. And this villain-based belief is the opposite of one of the victim lies that I went over last week. So the victim lie is people are only tolerating you. And I talked about that in episode 3. And the villain lie is people are nerve-wracking and barely tolerable most of the time. And so I wanted to make sure you saw both of those beliefs. So my final belief that I'm going to talk about, or lie that I'm going to talk about today, is people have to compensate you for your presence with goods and services. So this lie is telling the afflicted individual that people have to pay them for allowing them to exist in their presence. And it's the opposite of the lie I went over last week. So last week in episode 3, I broke down the victim lie. You have to compensate for your presence with goods and services. So this episode, I'm talking about the villain lie. People have to compensate you for your presence with goods and services. So an overt reaction when this belief issues directors or it's triggered is asking others if they are paying whenever someone invites the lie afflicted person to go to an event or an outing. So if someone says, would you like to grab lunch? Their automatic overt reaction is, are you paying? Are you buying? If someone says, hey, you want to go to the movies this weekend? Their overt reaction is, are you paying? Are you buying, the popcorn, and are you paying? They want everything. They want their admission to the movies, the popcorn, the pop, are you buying? Are you paying? And another reaction is when someone asks them to do something or do they want to do something, they will say, do you have, how much. They may ask, how much it costs. Because I don't have any money. That's one of their reactions. So they may ask, how much it costs, but then they're going to follow it up by, I don't have any money, right? So giving off the signal that if you want to spend time with me, you're going to have to pay for everything. And so a lot of people, that's an overt reaction. So a more covert reaction to this lie is acting irritated, angry, or dismissive when someone refuses to give the lie afflicted person something or do something for that individual. So people who are afflicted by this lie, they get angry when someone tells them no, or if someone says, I'm not able to do that for reasons A, B, C, or whatever, they get upset. They get angry despite what the people who are telling them no has done for them in the past. They act like the person is doing something wrong if they say no. And so here's some more functional beliefs. So I'm going to summarize the functional belief that's on the back of my cognitive restructuring cards in a couple sentences. People don't have to pay you for allowing them to exist in your presence. Give people a chance to understand how you think so they can make an informed decision. Because a lot of people who struggle with manipulation, that's one of their defects of character. They are manipulative, and that they operate out of this belief and a lot of other ones, this cognitive distortion and a lot of other ones. I've had some people tell me, Miss Freeman, yeah, that's how I get down. I've worked with a lot of people over the course of my years. I work with primarily court mandated clients the first 12 years of my career. And so a lot of people, because I'm very real, I keep it very real in my groups and in my individual sessions. So people feel free and comfortable to be real with me. So I've had people, say, yeah, that's how I get down, because in certain cultures and certain subcultures, people who operate out of this belief, they are skilled in the pimp game. And so pimp is an acronym for people who are not familiar with the acronym. It stands for power in manipulating people. Because when people hear the word pimp, a lot of individuals think about somebody with a big hat on, with a feather sticking out of it, leaning upside a Cadillac. A pimp stands for power in manipulating people. So a lot of people who struggle with this, they don't struggle. A lot of people don't struggle. They freely operate out of it. Some people struggle, but some people freely operate out of this cognitive distortion, because that's how they support themselves, by taking advantage of people with low self-esteem. And so I've had some of them say, yeah, Miss Freeman, that's how I get down. They're proud of it. And I said, okay, but understand this. There's a lot of people out here who are VV ambidextrous, who have victim and villain beliefs, and they don't give off clues that they have both. And so I warn them. I say, one day you're going to, you're going to try to manipulate somebody, and you may be successful for a period of time, and that person may compensate you for your presence with goods and services, but then they also may snap one day. I said that's the danger in it, because some people who are struggle with the victim lie, if they feel like they paid you to act like you love them or care about them, and then you stop and they find out, or you stop, or they find out you acting like you care about somebody else, they will react in a very dangerous way. And I'm not saying they should do that. They should work on their own cognitive distortions, but should and is are not the same thing. What people should do and what people do are two different things. So I tell people who brag about operating out of this cognitive distortion that you have to be careful, because one day you're going to step to somebody whose pressure cooker is at 99.9, and they're not giving off signs that they're at 99.9. And then if you come in, trying to manipulate them and take advantage of them, and then think you're going to move on, it may not turn out too well for you. I told one individual who was telling me that he manipulates women. He told me he manipulates women. I told him, and he said, and he went through my program, and he said it was hard for him not to use the information he learned to manipulate them even more. I said, okay, because he learned about the victim and the villain. I said, okay. I said, and I'm just being real. You don't know who I'm talking about. So I just was being real with him. I said, hey, keep some money on your credit card, because if somebody who you are manipulating snap one day and you find yourself being held hostage, and I'm not being funny, this is real. It was a little funny the way I said it, but I was being real. I'm like, keep you some money on your credit card, program my number in your phone, ask them to call me, and put the phone on speaker, because they might have you, restrained in some way. You may be tied up. I said, and I'll try to talk them out of their activation. I will try to talk them into letting you go. I said, but it's not guaranteed. And I'm gonna charge you for it. So keep some on your credit card because I'm gonna ask them to get your credit card out your wallet and then read it to me because I'm gonna charge you for using this material that I gave you to help yourself to hurt somebody. Just don't do that. And so what the functional belief is saying, if you really believe that people have to pay you for your presence, then tell them that up front. Don't, like be honest with them so they can make an informed decision. Don't act like you're really interested in somebody, but your whole motive is to manipulate them and get stuff from them. Tell them up front. These are the terms and conditions so people can be like, oh, thank you for letting me know, so people can make an informed decision on whether or not they want to pay you for your presence. And so here's an overt response to the healthy belief. Paying your own check at the restaurant or paying for your own tickets for the concert. Somebody said, hey, you want to go to the concert? We going to the concert? Yeah, how much the tickets? Who buying the tickets? Let me get my ticket. Did y'all already order? Hey, if you ordered a ticket, yeah, here, let me give you my money for the tickets if you've already ordered them. Just letting a person know that you believe in paying your own way, when you hang out with people. Because if you hang out with people, why not hang out with people who you enjoy being around? And so a more covert response to the functional belief is offering to do things for people from time to time who also offer to do things for you from time to time. So that's a reciprocal relationship. So sometimes when you go out to lunch, they pick up the check. So the next time you go out to lunch, you pick up the check. Being in relationships that are reciprocal, that where people give, they make deposits and withdrawals. And it's not about tit for tat. It's about just reciprocity. It's about being in relationships where you respect each other, where you enjoy each other, where you like doing things for each other, whether you're talking about friends, family, significant others. It's about reciprocal relationships. And it takes time to get to the point where you have a healthy belief system, because I had to heal from all of these. I know people are maybe thinking, I don't know what you're thinking. Some people may think that, wow, you didn't have to heal from all of those. Yes, I did. And my life story is available on Amazon if you want to read, if you want to learn what happened to me that caused me to have to heal from so many toxic beliefs, so many dysfunctional, unconscious, trauma-based beliefs. I break it down in my book that's available on Amazon. So that's all for episode 4, which is the last episode in this series. If you want to watch episodes 1 through 3, just scroll down on my feed, the timeline, and you can see the other episodes. If you would like more information about my work, I'm going to put some links in the comment section. I do offer life coaching. So if you want to work individually with me to heal and work through these beliefs, first discover which ones you struggle with and work through them, I do have life coaching packages. I also have a store page where you can purchase this workbook that comes with 2 sets of these cards. I also have another workbook that is sold with the cards. But if you buy this workbook and the card sets, if you want this workbook, you can just purchase it by itself. But if you just want this workbook, you have to, and you don't have the cards, then you should get it with the cards. It's not going to do you much good without the cards. So this particular workbook breaks down these unconscious beliefs and how they're programmed and how to heal from them. This workbook quantifies the financial and time demands that these dysfunctional beliefs or lies make on people's lives. Each one of these lies has a budget, and each one of these lies has a schedule. I have a master's in social work, and a master's in business administration. So I know how to quantify the impact of these lies economically and on people's time. I also have a workbook entitled The Adult Reenactment of the Childhood Script. This workbook is available on my store page. It's also available on Amazon if you want it like really quick. You can get it on Amazon. And so I have books. This book has 30. It's called What's Really Going On. This is volume 1. I'm going to release volume 2 before the end of this year. This has 31 cognitive restructuring articles that were originally featured in a bi-weekly column when I wrote for a particular multicultural newspaper. I wrote for some years for that newspaper. And so I put 31 of the articles in volume 1 of What's Really Going On. And I will release volume 2 that has 33, that has 31, it has 33 cognitive restructure articles. I'll be releasing that by the end of the year. This is also available in ebook and paperback on Amazon. The paperback is available on my store page. But this is also available on Amazon. And I did already mention my life story that's available in ebook or paperback, also on Amazon. So that's all again for this episode and for this series. And so I look forward to seeing you in the future when I do other live series. Enjoy the rest of your day.